Let's cut the fluff and get straight into it. You want to know why your life isn't moving the way you want. Start by listening to yourself, not what others are saying, what you're saying. The language you use, especially in those quiet moments when no one else is listening, is silently programming your mind for what you will or won't do. The brain isn't this mystical thing sitting in your skull waiting to be discovered. It's a machine, a damn good one, but a machine nonetheless, and like any machine it runs on input. Guess what your main input is? Language, that's right, the way you speak, both out loud and in your head, is quite literally the code your brain uses to write your life. You ever tell yourself, I'm not smart enough for that, or that's not for people like me? Boom, input received. Your brain shuts the door, turns off the lights, and doesn't even try. Why would it? You told it not to, but change the sentence to, I don't know it yet, but I can learn, and suddenly your brain fires up. It starts looking for answers, it opens up to growth, it moves forward. Language is not just about communication. It's about construction. You are building a mindset, one sentence at a time, and most people, without realizing it, are using words that sabotage them before they even take the first step. They install mental firewalls that block opportunity, block effort, block belief. They don't even give themselves a chance to try. Let me give you something to chew on. You say, I'm terrible with money. What happens? You reinforce that belief every time you say it. You act according to it. You make poor decisions because you've accepted that's just who you are. But switch it to, I'm learning how to manage my money better. And suddenly you've given yourself permission to grow. That tiny shift in words, that's power. That's leverage. Language creates your mental operating system. Just like you wouldn't download viruses to your computer, stop downloading garbage thoughts through negative self-talk. Every sentence you speak either strengthens or weakens the code running your life. And the most dangerous phrases, they're the quiet ones you mutter when you're frustrated. I'll never get it. It's too late for me. I've always been this way. That's poison. Stop drinking it. Here's the thing. The world's already full of people who are going to doubt you, question you, tell you what you can't do. Don't join them. Don't be your own worst enemy. Your internal dialogue should be your number one supporter, not your biggest critic. If someone else said the things you say to yourself, you'd probably walk away. But because it's coming from your own mouth, or worse, your own thoughts, you accept it like truth. Well, it's not truth. It's just repetition. The more you repeat it, the more you believe it. The more you believe it, the more you act on it. And the more you act on it, the more your life reflects it. That's the loop. That's the pattern you've got to break. So what do? You start becoming intentional with your language. You become hyper, aware of the words coming out of your mouth and bouncing around in your mind. And when you catch something negative, you don't just let it slide. You correct it, right then, right there, even if you don't fully believe the new phrase yet. Say it anyway. Say it until it sticks, until it becomes the new code. If you say, I'm not confident, stop. Say, I'm building my confidence every day. If you say, I don't have what it takes, switch it to, I'm developing the skills I need. This isn't fluff. This is strategy. This is how you take back control of your brain and, by extension, your results. Look, most people don't even realize the prison they've built with their words. But once you do see it, you can choose different words. Words that unlock doors instead of slamming them shut. Words that guide your focus instead of scattering it. Words that move you forward instead of keeping you stuck. And no, this doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means speaking in a way that aligns with where you want to go, not where you're stuck, because your brain listens. Every time it listens, it obeys, and it builds your reality based on what you tell it. That's how the programming works, and the longer you run a certain script, the more automatic it becomes. Which is why you've got to write a better one phrase at a time, one mindset shift at a time, one decision at a time. Let's get real for a second. Belief isn't magic. It's not some fluffy motivational poster with stars and unicorns. Belief is built, it's engineered, and guess what the bricks are? Your words. Every belief you've got about yourself, about the world, about what you can or can't do, was formed by language, repeated over time until it became your internal reality. People walk around thinking their beliefs are set in stone, like they were born with them or handed down by fate. Nah, most of those beliefs were spoken into existence by parents, teachers, friends, or even worse, you. The stuff you say to yourself, day in and day out, that's the stuff that hardwires your identity. You say something often enough, it doesn't just become a sentence, it becomes who you are. Let's say someone constantly says, "I've always been bad at numbers." They're not just describing a skill, they're cementing a belief. The more they say it, the more it feels true. The more it feels true, the less they even try. And over time, it's not just a statement, it's an identity. Not because it was written in their DNA, but because it was repeated into existence. That's the scary part, and the powerful part. Because if words can build beliefs that hold you back, they can also build beliefs that push you forward. It's just a matter of choosing which ones you're going to repeat. That's right, repeat. Because belief doesn't come from what you say once. It comes from what you say consistently. Think about it. Every time you say, "I'm not that smart," your brain goes, "Cool, got it. Let's not waste energy on learning new things." But if you start saying, "I'm someone who figures things out," now your brain has a new directive, a new identity to build, a new belief to support. This is where most people mess it up. They think belief comes first, that you need to feel confident before you act confident. Nope, it's the other way around. You speak it, you act on it, and then belief follows. Not the other way around. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to run around chanting affirmations you don't believe just to feel better about yourself. I'm saying use words that train your brain to believe better things about yourself. Words that are based on progress, direction, and effort, not excuses, weakness, and self-pity. Start small. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "I'm not a leader" with "I'm developing leadership skills." Replace "I'm terrible at this" with "I'm getting better with every try." These aren't just cute phrases. They're tools that rewire the stories you tell yourself. Tools that install new beliefs one line at a time. And don't underestimate the power of repetition. Repetition is how belief is built. Ever heard a lie so many times that people start to accept it as truth? That's how it works. You say it enough, your brain treats it as fact, even if it's total rubbish. So flip the script. Start feeding your brain better lies, lies that serve you until they become truths. Because here's the kicker, your brain doesn't care if what you're saying is true, it only cares if it's consistent. So if you've been telling yourself the same disempowering story for years, no wonder you believe it. But say something empowering every day, and eventually that's what becomes real. Your brain doesn't know the difference. It just builds according to the blueprint you give it, and words are the blueprint. Let's take a practical example. Say you've got a fear of public speaking. You keep telling yourself, "I'm a terrible speaker." Boom, belief formed, but you decide to shift it. Every day you say, "I'm improving every time I speak." You join a local group. You speak up more in meetings. You remind yourself, "I'm learning to lead with confidence." Give it a few months, and what happens? The old belief starts fading. The new belief starts sticking, not because of a miracle. Not because your DNA changed, but because your words changed. Belief is not some mysterious force outside of you. It's inside you, and it's shaped by what you say to yourself, not once, but repeatedly. If you keep feeding your brain the same garbage language, don't be surprised when your belief system smells like a landfill. But clean up the input. Feed it words that reflect the version of you that you want to become. And slowly but surely, your belief system starts to rebuild from the inside out. Most people don't need a new life. They need a new lens. And that lens, it's made of language, the way you frame things, the words you choose when you describe your situation, can either trap you or transform you. It's not what happens to you that matters most, it's how you talk about it. That's the difference between people who crumble under pressure and people who grow from it. Let's say two people lose their job. One says, "I'm a failure, I've been rejected, no one wants me." The other says, "This is a chance to find something better, I wasn't fulfilled there anyway." Same situation, completely different framing. One shuts down and spirals, the other steps up and adapts, and the only difference, language. It's what your brain does with those words that counts. Language isn't just noise, it's instruction. Every time you speak about your life, your brain listens and builds reality around those statements. If you say, "I'm stuck," guess what? Your brain stops looking for options. But if you say, "This is a temporary pause before I pivot," now your mind starts planning again. That's the power of reframing. Take the classic one, "I failed." That word alone makes people want to hide under a blanket and binge Netflix for a week. But reframe it to, "I learned something that didn't work." And suddenly, it's not a dead end. It's a stepping stone. It's feedback, not failure. You didn't lose, you learned. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about leading yourself. Leaders reframe things to keep going. Losers lock themselves into a negative loop. Language is how you lead your mind through adversity, and if you can't control what's happening around you, at least control what you call it. Look at the difference between saying, "I'm overwhelmed," versus "I'm in high demand," or "I'm stuck in traffic," versus "I've got time to think." You're still in the same situation, but the second version gives you back some control. It puts you in the driver's seat instead of in the victim's seat. You're not stuck. You're choosing how to see it, and it works in business too. People say things like, "I have to do this," and already it feels like a chore. Try swapping it for, "I get to do this," and it suddenly becomes an opportunity. Same task, different energy. You're framing it as a privilege, not a punishment. Now apply this to money. Saying, "I'm broke," is one of the worst things you can say to yourself. It implies finality, like there's no way out. But if you say, "I'm managing my money while building income streams," it sounds like a plan. It doesn't deny the situation. It just puts power back in your hands. Even emotional states can be reframed. Instead of saying, "I'm anxious," try, "My body's preparing me to perform." Because physiologically, anxiety and excitement feel almost the same: racing heart, sweaty palms, tense muscles. So the difference isn't the feeling, it's the label you give it. That label decides whether you lean in or back off. Here's another one: "This is hard." Yes, some things are hard, but what if you framed it as, "This is where most people quit, and I won't"? That sentence alone can keep you in the game, because now the challenge isn't just pain, it's a proving ground. It's where you rise above the rest. That's the power of choosing your language with intention. You can even reframe your past. People drag around old failures like they're a life sentence. "I messed up that business, so I'm not cut out for this." Nonsense. Reframe it. "That failed business taught me more than any MBA ever could." Now it becomes your competitive advantage, not your identity. The truth is, your words are either digging a hole or building a ladder. Every time you speak, you're making a choice. Either you're reinforcing the same stuck story, or you're rewriting the narrative into something more useful. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about influencing how you show up in it. This is what successful people do without even thinking about it. They don't catastrophize, they don't dramatize, they reframe. A problem becomes a project, a loss becomes a lesson, a weakness becomes a work in progress, and that shift, those few words, can change everything about how you respond, how you feel, and what you do next. Let's stop sugarcoating things. Most people don't fail because of lack of talent. They fail because they never fully commit. They flirt with success like it's a hobby, like it's something they'll try when they have time or when they feel motivated, and that one word, try, that's where the downfall begins. You ever notice how people use "try" as a safety net? I'll try to wake up early. I'll try to start that business. I'll try to save money. It sounds responsible. It sounds like effort. But really, it's just mental insurance in case they don't follow through. It's a built-in excuse, a way to fail gently. If it doesn't work out, hey, they tried. Right. Wrong. Try is a word people hide behind when they're not ready to go all in. You don't try to do something important. You decide to do it, and then you do it. That's how progress happens. That's how real growth takes place, not through half promises to yourself, but through full commitments backed by consistent action. Let me ask you something. If someone says, "I'll try to pay you back," how confident are you that money's coming? Not very, right, because we all know what try really means. It means they're leaving themselves an out, they're not serious, they're hedging, and you do the same thing when you use that word with your own goals. You tell yourself, "I'll try to get in shape," and your brain already knows you've left the back door open. That word tells your subconscious, "Don't invest fully, don't go all in, we're not sure about this." And that's how you stay stuck. Not because you don't want it, not because you're not capable, but because you never locked in the decision to make it non-negotiable. Think about high performers in any field: business, sports, finance, fitness. You think they're waking up every morning saying, "I'll try to train today"? Of course not. It's scheduled, it's structured, it's done whether they feel like it or not, because they decided a long time ago that results matter more than feelings, and commitment matters more than convenience. When you remove try from your vocabulary, something changes in your brain. You stop giving yourself escape routes. You stop looking for backup plans before you've even executed the first one. You start showing up differently, more focused, more driven, more dangerous. You stop asking if and start asking how. Now, let's be clear, this doesn't mean everything works on the first attempt. Of course it doesn't. You'll stumble, you'll adapt, you'll hit walls, but when you commit instead of try, you're not looking for the easy way out. You're looking for the way forward, whatever it takes. That mindset alone puts you in a different league. Here's an example. Someone says, "I'm going to start a side hustle, and I'm going to make it work no matter what." That person is going to learn, pivot, adjust, and keep moving until something clicks. Now contrast that with someone who says, "I'll try dropshipping for a few weeks, and if it doesn't work, I'll just stop." That second person already failed before they began. Not because dropshipping doesn't work, but because they were never all in. People use try to sound busy without being productive. They wear effort like a badge, but it's effort without intention, effort without clarity. And let's be honest, effort without commitment doesn't get you anywhere. You could try things for 10 years and stay in the exact same place, all because you never decided to take full responsibility for the outcome. You want different results. Start using different language. Replace "I'll try" with "I will." Replace "maybe" with "must." Replace "I hope" with "I plan." These small tweaks force your brain to treat the goal like a mission, not a lottery ticket. You're not hoping you get lucky. You're expecting results because you're doing what it takes to earn them. Every time you say "I'll try," ask yourself this: are you preparing to win, or are you preparing to quit? Because try is the word of someone looking for a graceful exit, but do is the word of someone willing to stay in the fight. And this game, whatever your game is, only rewards people who stay in it long enough to break through. People love to say they're trying their best, but most of the time that just means they've accepted mediocrity in advance. They've convinced themselves that attempting something is as good as achieving it. But trying doesn't produce outcomes. Doing does. Execution does. Relentless, committed, consistent action does. And that only comes from a mindset that leaves no room for try, only space for results, for action, for growth through the process. No matter how long it takes or how tough it gets, here's a truth nobody wants to admit. Most of the limits in your life aren't put there by other people. They're put there by you, and more specifically by your own mouth, the way you talk to yourself when no one's watching. That's what's driving your progress or stalling it. It's not just about hard work, strategy, or connections. It's about the conversation going on in your own head 24/7. See, people think self-talk is just harmless background noise. It's not. It's command central. It's the internal voice that gives your brain instructions. And your brain listens. If that voice is filled with doubt, fear, or negativity, don't be surprised when your actions start to match that script. You'll second guess your ideas, hesitate on opportunities, and sabotage your progress before you even start. But flip the script. Start feeding yourself with strong, positive, empowering language, and everything starts to shift, not magically, but mentally. You begin to see possibilities instead of problems. You stop freezing when challenges hit, and instead you start moving. That's what momentum is. Forward motion fueled by belief, and belief is built by words. Let's break this down. When you say things like, "I'm such an idiot," "I always screw this up," or "I'll never be successful," that's not venting, that's programming. You're reinforcing failure, and the worst part is, your brain doesn't even question it. It just takes it in and starts running that software. But what if every time you messed up, you said, "That didn't work, but I'm learning"? That one line shifts your entire mindset. It doesn't deny the mistake. It just frames it in a way that keeps you moving forward, and that's the key, language that fuels momentum, not regret. Most people think motivation comes from external hype, but the strongest motivation comes from internal alignment. When your self-talk reflects where you're going instead of where you've been, your mind starts pushing you in the right direction. It starts looking for solutions instead of excuses. That's how winners think. Not because they're better, but because they speak to themselves like someone they respect. If you talk to yourself like an enemy, don't expect to feel powerful, but talk to yourself like a coach, someone who sees your potential even when you mess up, and you'll start performing differently. You'll take more risks, you'll bounce back faster, you'll develop grit, not guilt. It's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about choosing language that keeps the engine running. Instead of, "This is too hard," you say, "This is going to grow me." Instead of, "I'm not good at this," you say, "I'm getting better every time I try." Instead of, "I can't do this," you say, "I haven't mastered it yet." That tiny word, "yet," is a game changer. It leaves the door open. It tells your brain, "We're not there, but we're on the way." That keeps you in motion. That keeps the fire lit, and that's exactly what momentum is. It's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to stop. Now let's be real. Positive self-talk isn't about standing in the mirror reciting cheesy affirmations like, "I'm a millionaire," when your bank account's crying. It's about using language that's true but strategic. You say, "I'm learning how to create income." You say, "I'm taking action every day toward my financial goals." That's honest, that's powerful, that moves you forward. Because here's the deal, life's going to throw enough punches as it is. You don't need to punch yourself in the face with your own words. Your inner voice should be your secret weapon, not your worst critic. When things get tough, you don't want a voice saying, "See, told you you couldn't do it." You want one saying, "This is tough, but you're tougher. Let's figure it out." And don't wait until you feel good to start talking better to yourself. Start talking better to yourself to feel good. Most people wait for results before they shift their mindset, but that's backwards. Results follow mindset, not the other way around. Speak the mindset first and let your actions catch up. You want to build momentum, start with your mouth. Talk like someone who's going somewhere. Speak from your goals, not your fears. Catch yourself when the negative chatter kicks in and consciously replace it with something stronger. Doesn't have to be dramatic, just enough to keep you moving, even when you're tired, even when it feels pointless, even when it looks like you're not making progress, because those are the exact moments your self-talk makes or breaks you. That voice can pull you back into the same old patterns, or it can drag you forward into something new. It's your choice, it's your tool, and if you learn to use it well, it becomes the edge most people never develop. They lift weights, they read books, they plan strategies, but they never train the one voice that controls it all. The voice that determines whether they show up, give up, or level up. The voice that sets the tone for the entire day before their feet even hit the floor in the morning. The voice that, when sharpened, becomes the fuel for everything else they're trying to build, earn, or become. Here's something most people never learn in school. Your brain believes you. Not the news, not your friends, not even your parents, as much as it believes the words coming out of your own mouth. And once it believes something, it starts to look for proof. That's how powerful your self-talk is. It doesn't just influence your thinking, it shapes your reality. The human brain is an incredible machine, but it's not that smart when it comes to filtering truth from fiction. It takes what you say, especially when you say it repeatedly, and runs with it. If you say, "I'm terrible with money," your brain doesn't argue, it doesn't stop and fact-check you, it just says, "Got it," and starts creating behaviors that match that belief. Overspending, avoiding financial education, missing opportunities, you name it. All because your brain was just following the orders you gave it, and it works the other way too. You say, "I'm disciplined with my money," even if you're still figuring it out and your brain listens. It starts to spot patterns that support that statement. It begins to build habits that reflect that identity. You start saying no to things that don't serve your goals. You pay attention to where your money's going. All because the instructions changed. Most people don't realize they're training their brain every day, not with books or courses, but with casual, repeated statements that either empower them or chain them down. "I'm always late. I never finish anything. I'm not good with people. Harmless, not even close." These phrases become self-fulfilling prophecies. You live into them, not because they're true, but because your brain starts making them true. And it's not about fake positivity or pretending everything's perfect. It's about becoming intentional with the language you allow to repeat in your head. Think of your brain like soil. The words you plant are the seeds. Keep planting garbage, and don't be surprised when garbage grows. But start planting strong, focused, empowering thoughts, and you'll grow a completely different life. Let's get practical for a second. You've got a goal, say, starting a business. You tell yourself, "I'm not an entrepreneur. I've never done this before." Your brain hears that and goes, "Fair enough. Let's just play it safe." But say instead, "I'm becoming a business owner. I'm learning the skills step by step." Now your brain's on a mission. It's looking for ways to make that identity real. It spots opportunities. It absorbs knowledge faster. It gets creative under pressure, not because the world changed, but because you did. Your self-talk is a blueprint. Speak like a quitter, and your brain builds a life that quits. Speak like a winner, and it builds a life that wins, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because in those moments where doubt creeps in, your internal voice is either your anchor or your engine. And the truth is, repetition is the weapon. One statement won't change much, but daily language. That's a different story. The reason people believe they're not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable isn't because they heard it once. It's because they heard it constantly, from themselves. So if you want new beliefs, you've got to fight repetition with repetition. Out-talk your old programming with new, stronger, more focused language. This applies to everything: your confidence, your work ethic, your relationships, your health. You walk around saying, "I'm not confident speaking in public." And every time you avoid it, you prove yourself right. But say, "I'm improving my public speaking skills," and your brain starts seeing speaking opportunities as practice, not punishment. That's how people grow, Not because they're fearless, but because they speak in a way that gives them permission to keep going. And don't make the mistake of thinking this is just mindset fluff. This is neuroscience. It's your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information based on what you focus on. If you keep saying, "I can't do this," that system filters out solutions. But if you start saying, "I can figure this out," suddenly your mind picks up things it used to ignore. It notices articles, advice, mentors, strategies. Not because they just appeared, but because your brain finally opened the door to them. Language isn't just describing your world, it's designing it. Every sentence is a signal, every phrase is a direction. You say, "I'm tired," and your energy drops. You say, "I've got more in the tank," and your brain starts pushing. And the more you feed it powerful, intentional language, the more it builds patterns that align with that identity. So if you're walking around feeding your brain weak phrases like "I'll never catch up," "I'm too old for this," or "I don't have what it takes," understand this. It's not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what you've rehearsed. Change the rehearsal and you change the performance. You rewire the way you see problems, the way you respond to setbacks, and the way you approach everything from success to failure to opportunity to growth. Because your brain, for all its brilliance, still depends on one thing to guide it: what you consistently tell it about who you are and what you're capable of becoming.